right. I just love technology because you can plan things to be perfect and exact. And as soon as it's time to go live, it starts to act out of whack. Needless to say, we will be perfectly live in just a second. I just need to connect this to my Instagram account since I'm going live everywhere, which is a cool thing to do. If you guys are ever wondering how to do that, while I get this set up, I'll just tell you that the easiest way to do it is with a program called Ecamm Live. They got a few other ones, but I love Ecamm because it's also customizable in a really cool way. So I think I got it set now. Make sure it's actually working. I appreciate you guys joining. Let me know where you are in the chat since I'm going live across the board. I would love to know if you're visiting me from Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. And if you don't know me, I'll go ahead and introduce myself at the same time. My name is Rod Brinson. Obviously, I am a brand strategist. I have 20 plus years in marketing, 20 plus years in corporate. I've been doing this for quite some time. And I don't know if Instagram is going to work. Instagram wants to act up tonight, so we'll just let it act up. But I'm also on TikTok, so catch me there. That said, I just want to welcome you all in. These conversations that I'm having are about helping you to grow, not just in business, not just in corporate, but in life as well. It's not about making money, it's more about who you're becoming. So I want you guys to kind of zero in on that piece to understand that that is absolutely a very big part of what is going on, is growing into who you are becoming. Because when you get clear on who you are, your work gets sharper, your life feels fuller, and the money will start to make more sense, pun intended. Okay. So let's get into it. I named tonight's live session The New Way to Compete is Not to Compete. I'll say that again for the people in the back who didn't hear me. The new way to compete is not to compete. Well, what do you mean by that, Rod? Why would you say not to compete? Well, I mean, if you think about it, we grew up competing, whether you're playing a board game or sports, whether you're trying to get a higher grade in class from the person next to you. Competition has been a natural part of our lives. It's who we are, it's what we do. But it shouldn't always be the thing that we do. There has to be a better way, right? So that's why I say the new way to compete is not to compete. Don't try to compete with people that are doing things that are similar to you or better than you in your perception. What you need to do instead of that is find a way to be the best version of yourself. And that is no cliche. That is not just some random comment I put together just to make you feel good. There's some real truth behind it. And tonight, I'm going to walk through these principles of how you can actually do that so that you can stop this rat race of focusing on trying to compete in a way that you should not be competing. So, when I was putting this together, I was thinking through a quick story of mine. I used to play in the band in high school, marching band actually. Um, and I mean, it's a real marching band. I'm talking high stepping, flags flipping, and batons waving all through the air. And it was a large band. It wasn't like 20 people and core style. No, no, no. You're talking 200, 300 kids playing in this band, and we all loved it. Entertaining fans, doing stuff, and I played the snare drum. For those of you who don't know what a snare drum is, it's the one that's on the 2 and the 4 on the songs. It's the one that you clap your hand to, right? It's the high pitch pop sound that you hear. Pop, right? That's what I used to play. And it takes a certain level of skill to be able to use your drumsticks in a way where people can be entertained by it, but you're also keeping the beat. Like it's a lot that's going into it. And part of the training is when stuff is going on around you, you have to be able to ignore that in order to play this drum properly. Well, this one particular song we will play in the stands would have a drum solo where each person that played the snare drum had the ability to play their instrument in the solo fashion. So it's like, wow, in this moment I get to be solo. Matter of fact, I don't think my Instagram is working properly, so I want to just make sure my Instagram fam gets the chance to see me. So let's go live from my phone. So needless to say, you would get the chance to do your solo if you played snare drum. And so pretty much every game I would get ready to do my solo. And this first particular time I'm practicing, I'm preparing, I'm getting everything set. And I get ready to play my solo. And I felt like it's not working out. I felt like people are not going to listen to it the same because they just heard this solo from this other guy who could really play. And I mean, this other guy is playing. I don't know if you guys know, but some people are just naturally talented, regardless of who they are and what they do. They just got their stuff together. And so he's playing his solo, and I mean, if you can just imagine somebody playing the snare drum, he's doing all this amazing stuff, flipping sticks. The crowd is going wild. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I gotta follow that. So I gotta play my solo next. Is there any way I could have gone first or maybe like last when people have kind of forgotten about him? But no, I'm the next guy in line. And I'm thinking to myself, how can I compete with this guy who just blew everything away? I don't have that skill set. Yeah, I can play and I sound good, but I got to follow him. So how do you compete with somebody who's just killing it and they're doing much better than you? Well, believe it or not, I found a way. I decided to be myself. And so instead of playing all this amazing stuff and flipping my sticks, it was like a 4-bar measure. I don't know if you know music, but that's a really short section of music where I had this solo. And instead of playing this wild solo where I'm doing all this crazy, amazing stuff, I hit the drum one time, pop, and I sat there and I counted in silence for my solo to end. And right before it ended, like I did one little move, tap, 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 and the band came back in. And everybody went wild. Now, why am I telling you that story? I titled this live, The New Way to Compete is Not to Compete. That's how you compete. Don't try to compete with people that are doing what you're doing, or you perceive that they're doing it better, faster, stronger. They have more money. They have more of a team. They have better equipment. They have better lighting. Don't try to compete with that. Instead, find a way to be your unique self, to dive into who you are, develop that piece, and present that to the world. So I'm a humorous guy in my mind. I know how to make little jokes and, smooth things out and all that good stuff. So when I played that drum, that one hit, everybody was shocked. Like, what is he doing? And when I brought the beat back in, it was like, oh, that was dope, right? So my point to you is this. Instead of trying to compete in that lane, I did my own thing and it worked out. And it's been working out for me ever since. It should be the same way on your job. It should be the same way in your business, in your relationships, in your marriage, the way you parent. There's no limit to you being the best version of you. You will always run into trouble when you try to compete with somebody else who you deem is doing it better, stronger, faster, smarter, in a more efficient way. Okay, so let's jump into it, right? And thank you guys for joining my Instagram live over here. I thought it was gonna be over here, but technology don't work like that sometimes. Anyhow, I thought that if you just work hard and competed, that you would inevitably find success. That's it. You work hard, you compete, you do your thing, you get better, you find success. That's not always the case. Uh-oh. Oh, sorry. Technology. It's not always the case. Just because you work hard doesn't mean you're going to find success. Just because you had some success doesn't mean that success will last always. What you have to do instead of working hard and competing is work hard on finding out who you are. Because the real problem isn't that competition, is based off of the premise that there are, a set of rules and everyone is competing on the same playing field. No, no, no. That's not the problem. The problem is not realizing that we can never truly compete without tapping into who we truly are. So, if you're with me and you have some comments on this, if you've experienced any of this, let me know in the chat. Just say that was me. I used to compete. Say that was me. So how do we build our brand up in this way where we're not necessarily competing with the people that are around us that are doing our thing, but rather we are focused on building our own lane and building our own image and our own brand up so that we don't even have to compete? Because here's the truth, like I'm not even gonna front. You can't compete with someone else who knows who they are. You can't compete with someone else who knows who they are. Because when you know who you are, you have your own lane and you're riding in that. You're not even thinking about nobody else. You're focused on what your strengths are and your weaknesses are. So let's talk through that. I got 4 points I want to give you guys on how you can build your brand up in a way that you never have to compete in business, in life, in marriage, in your neighborhood association. It doesn't matter what it is. I want to give you these 4 points that'll help you to never have to compete again, because I promise you, one thing I'm not going to do is compete with anybody. They have a saying called keeping up with the Joneses. I don't keep up with the Joneses. There's about 115 homes in our neighborhood, and I think maybe 40 of them had Christmas lights up this year, maybe more, maybe 60. I was not one of them. Not because I'm Scrooge or the Grinch or anything like that, but because it's just not that season of my life this year. I didn't want to put Christmas lights up. And I'm talking about some major lights. They're not just like, your CVS lights you put on the bush. No, people have companies coming out installing these lights, putting up Christmas trees and snow cones and all this stuff, right? And that doesn't move me to do anything different than I was already going to do. I have nothing in me that makes me say, such and such is doing that, so now I need to do that. No, I'm going to do what I want to do, what fits me, and I'm not going to be motivated by somebody else and try to compete with them. And I think you should do the same because it's going to benefit you. So, point number 1, here's how you begin to not compete with anybody, because this is the new way to compete. The new way to compete is to not compete. How do you do that? Number 1, depend on your skill, not on your timeline. I'll say that again. You need to depend on your skill, not on your timeline. How many times have you opened up an Instagram or Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, any of these, and you start scrolling, looking at what somebody else is doing? You're looking at the metrics. You're looking at how many likes, how many views, how many comments. You're looking at the way they shot it, how they talk, how they dressed. It's nothing wrong with looking at those things for inspiration. There's nothing wrong with looking at those things for a guide on how to be successful in what you're doing. Nothing wrong with that. It's actually recommended. However, The lines get blurred when you get into a space where you feel like, in order for me to be successful, I need to do it the way such and such did it. Or I need to post this type of content. Or I need to write this kind of article. Maybe if I did this kind of photo shoot, then I would get the results I'm looking for. You will be making a mistake for the rest of your life if that is how you intend on reaching the levels of success that you want. Because even if you are able to clone a person's attempts at creating content or um, even a resume for a job interview, if you're doing that and you're able to like identically copy this thing, it does not mean you're going to yield the same results. More than likely, it will not be the same results. This is why grandma's recipe can be passed down in exact written form and never come out the same. Grandma was adding pinches of salt and sugar and all type of stuff that you don't know about. She wasn't even measuring. She wrote the measurements down just so y'all can have the recipe, but she didn't measure. Okay? My point to you is this: there's something in you that needs its own space. That's why I said depend on your skill, not on your timeline. And if you don't have the skill, develop it. And if you do have the skill, nurture it, polish it, mold it, make it better. Okay? So depend on your skill, not on your timeline. It doesn't matter what the algorithm shows you. Matter of fact, it's only going to show you the type of stuff that it deems you're interested in, things that you've liked, things that you've clicked on, things that you've shared. It's going to fill your timeline with those things. So I remember when I first got into the coaching space, I was like, man, everybody's a coach. This is crazy. I don't stand a chance. It's oversaturated. I know y'all heard those phrases before. It's oversaturated. There's too many people doing this. What it is your timeline is showing you that all the other people that are doing it similar to you or that you've clicked on or liked and that type of thing. That does not mean that that is a big portion of the world. That's just what's on your timeline. So depend on your skill. Don't depend on your timeline. All right. Point number 2. Discover what makes you unique. Discover what makes you unique. And some of you know it already. You know what makes you unique. You're just not proud of it. Or you don't feel like it's substantial enough to lean on. Or you don't deem it worthy enough to add value to someone's life. Or maybe it does add value to someone's life, but it doesn't pay the bills. I can only say this as plainly and clearly as this. What makes you unique is the very thing that's going to sing you into the stratosphere as soon as you decide to discover it, develop it, and depend on it. You were uniquely made. There's nobody on this earth, past, present, or future, that's you, other than you. What do you have to offer? If you don't know, spend some time with that thing. That was one of the first things I did prior to getting laid off. I was really desperate to find some fulfillment and peace. And for those of you who don't know, I was laid off in February 2024 for the first time in my career. And I already knew I was going to be a full-time entrepreneur after that, even though I had no desire to do that prior to that. But one of the first things I did was I was like, what makes me unique? What do I have to offer? And when I, leaned into it fully and found out, I realized I needed to develop the skill. I needed to like really tap into it. First, I had to discover it. Then I had to develop it. And after that, I can like release it and show it to the world and demand pay for it. Because that's the other piece to it. Like, it's one thing to be unique and have uniqueness. It's another thing to self-sabotage and say, oh, well, I don't think anybody will pay me for this. Or I don't know if I can make a living off of this. Well, guess what? Confucius says the man who believes he can and the man who believes he can't are both correct. So which one do you want to be? Do you want to be the man who believes he can, one man, or the man, woman who believes he, she can't? It's up to you. And it absolutely matters. It matters more than anything. This is why, they got those stories about women who have lifted cars off of babies and stuff like that. When you're pressed up against something that you really want to do and you believe you can do it, you're probably going to do it in some capacity or the other. And if you're unable to do it, it's probably because you don't believe it. Belief requires action. So if you believe something and you're not acting on that thing, then I question whether or not you believe it. All right, so I'm not going to get down on you guys too much because I'm speaking about the older version of me as well. This is not a thing where I'm just sitting on a cloud and I'm looking down upon people who don't know how to. No, I'm talking about me. This is the version of me before I discovered these things. That's why I'm sharing it with you. Okay, point number 3. We went through point number 1, which was depend on your skill, not on your timeline. Point number 2 was discover what makes you unique. And point number 3, which I got 4 points, okay, so stick with me, is to dive in your own lane. Dive in your own lane. So in high school, I had the bright idea to join my swim team. That's right, me on the swim team. Yeah, that didn't last long. I think I quit after the first practice. I remember getting up on this diving board, and I wasn't on a dive team. It was just a swim team, but it was a diving board in the place that we practiced. Big Olympic-sized pool with the black lines at the bottom so you can know what lane you're in as you're swimming. And may have been a 20-foot diving board. I don't really know the height, but I climbed all the way to the top, and I'm looking down, and I'm like, man, this is a big jump. I'm not going to dive because I'm not quite ready for that. But I just want to make sure I don't break my neck or my ankles or my wrists going into this water from this height. So let me just jump in. Let me get over this fear of my heights and all that. I'm just jump in. So I jump in. And before you know it, like practice is starting. Everybody's lining up. The coach was like, all right, 20 laps. Let's go. She blew the whistle. The people who were experienced jumped in the water, start swimming. And I'm looking like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I guess I'm just going to follow suit. And I look and I notice that everybody's in their own lane. There are no floating lane dividers. It's just the water and the lines at the bottom of the pool. And I'm like, how are they staying in their lane? This is wild to me. But whatever, let me jump in. So I jump in, I'm in my lane, and I'm swimming. And I don't really know the proper mechanics. I just swim the best as I can at this point. And before you know it, I get all the way to the other end and I start swimming back. And I'm like, oh, I can do this. When I got back to the other end, and I considered that 2 laps because, I went down, I touched the wall, and I came back and I touched the wall. When I got to the other end, the coach was like, all right, that's 19 more. I said, hold up. I said, I went to the other end, I touched the wall. She said, I know. You have to go down and come back for 1 lap. That's why it's a lap. I said, oh my God. I don't think the swim team is for me because I'm winded. I mean, I'm winded like a chain smoker who just decided he wanted to be a swimmer one day. Like, I can't breathe. I went all the way down and touched the wall and came back and I can't breathe. And I got to do this 19 more times. And this is the warm up before practice. Yeah, you guys are dolphins. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the human side of things. Why am I telling you that story? Well, I dove in my own lane, or so I thought, literally. And I realized really quick that that's not the place I needed to be. My own lane was something different. I told a story at the beginning of this that playing drums was my thing. I felt really comfortable with that. I enjoyed it. I didn't mind practicing, working hard and getting better and, adjusting and being Johnny on the spot. All of that. Showed up for every game. That was my lane. The swim team, not so much. So, what is your lane in your career? What is your lane in business? What is the thing that you thrive in? What is the thing that your skill set has a demand associated with it? Because sometimes we get caught up in what we want to do, what we want to provide people, the position we want, rather than the position that we excel at. Don't overlook your skill set. Dive in your lane, and you will be able to swim with the greats. You won't be so winded after one lap during the warm up. So if there's something that you do, something that you're involved in, something that you feel comfortable doing on a regular basis, it doesn't exhaust you. You actually have an appetite for it, or the you don't get fatigued easily. That's probably the thing that you should be focused on. So dive in your lane, discover what makes you unique, depend on your skill, not your timeline. And finally, point number 4, develop your distinction. Develop your distinction. We talked about the timeline showing millions of people that were in coaching when I first started introducing the coaching aspect of my business. There were so many people doing it. It was disturbing, right? But it's like that with everything. It's the red car syndrome. When you first buy a new car, all of a sudden you see that same car everywhere on the road. It's not that they weren't there before, it's that your brain didn't have a reason to truly hone in on that and try to remember that piece. But now that you have the car, your brain automatically will signal, hey, that's the car that we have. It's familiarity. Where it's no different when it comes to you developing your distinction. You have to find out what makes you distinct in the midst of the crowd. How can you stand out? What's different about you? Why should this person pay attention to you? Why should this recruiter look at your resume? Why should this hiring manager pay attention and remember you in this interview versus the 50 other people they interviewed earlier that day? It's always something that you can do to make yourself distinct in a good way and a bad way. So you got to be careful with that. If you're in business and you are making yourself distinct by providing results and strategies and things that people don't feel like they can get anywhere else, you're going to stand out in a good way. If you make yourself distinct by not showing up, forgetting to call back, getting the money and forgetting to produce the thing that they paid you for, you're going to make yourself distinct in a bad way. So develop your distinction. That's why I say that. You don't just decide one day, oh, well, I'm going to wear pink so that I can be distinct. Okay, that's cool, but that's a fad. That is a trend. That's something that may not stick. That's something that is easily forgotten. You make yourself distinct by developing it in a way where your target customer, the hiring manager, the person that you're trying to impress and get to remember you, feels something from it. Feels something from it. If they feel something from it, they're probably going to remember you. I'll never forget this. I'm fresh out of college, and I apply for a job. I get the job. I'm working a job, and I decide to go for a different role internally. So I apply. I go online. I find a role. I apply. And like maybe 20 minutes later, I was telling a friend about it. I went to go find the job rec, and it was no longer there. And I'm like, wow, did I dream about that? Did I actually apply for this job or what? And so come to find out, I got called like the next day for an interview, to schedule the interview. And I asked them about the job break. I said, hey, as soon as I applied last night, it was no longer there. They said, yeah, we had so many applicants, we just took it down. So I said, when did you put it up? They said the same day. I said, wow. So if I had not sat down at the computer at that moment, I probably would have missed the opportunity. I apply for this job. I get the interview scheduled. And I remember going into the office to do this interview. It was at a different location than the one I was working at. Keep in mind, it was an internal, application. So I was already in the company, just a different department. It was all almost like a movie. It's like a row of people sitting outside waiting to go in for the interview. They all dressed to the part. They look sharp. They got their papers, and the first thing going through my mind is, well, probably not going to get this job, but it is what it is. I'm going to show up and show out. I'm going to do my best, and that's going to be that. When I get back to do the interview, it's a panel interview. I don't know if you've ever been on a panel interview. Some of you probably have, and you're like, what? Of course. Other people have not experienced that. So let me tell you, it is challenging when you don't know it's coming. I was expecting the hiring manager and me. I go in the room, it's 5 people sitting there, and then it's me. And I'm like, all right. But something changed in that moment. I went from thinking, there's no way I'm going to get this job, to there's no way anybody else is going to get this job. I literally had a epiphany in that moment and changed my thinking. So the interview begins, and the first thing I said was, hey, well, my name is Rod Brinson. My name is Rod Brinson, and today is my birthday. And everybody's like, oh, happy birthday, da da da. Turns out the hiring manager, her husband, his birthday was the same day as mine. So now I have a distinction. I have something that separates me from the pack. I have a connection to the hiring manager. Did I plan it out like that? Of course not. I didn't. I'm just joking. So I'm thinking to myself, I need to milk this without feeling like I'm like really milking this. So I'm like, I need to execute on this interview, make sure they understand I know what I'm talking about. And I'm sweating bullets. I'm sitting across from this panel discussion. They asking me questions. Nobody's smiling other than the hiring manager, who I'm happy she's smiling because, yeah, she's the one who's making the decision anyway. Got some haters in the room. So we get through this whole interview, and I'm like, I don't want this birthday thing to be the only thing that helps me to stand out. And I'll never forget, man, a good friend of mine, name is Tony Walker. He was at my current job. He knew I was doing this interview, and he talked to me. He said, Rod, if you ask this question, you're going to get the job guaranteed. I said, okay, sure. He said, no, I'm serious, man. He said, ask this question. I promise you, I've never told anybody to ask this question and they've not gotten the job. As long as you do your part and you do the interview well, when you get to the end and they ask you to ask a few questions, ask this question and you will get the job. Okay, you got to sign up for my class to get the... No, I'm just joking. I'll give you the question. I don't mind. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking through these questions, right? Because I want this job. And the first question I ask is about the company. It's something specific to the role, standardized thing. And the hiring manager said, well, you got any other questions? I said, yeah, I got one final question. I said, based on my interview thus far and what you know about me, is there any reason why I wouldn't be considered the best person for this role? And I just sat there. And I mean, it felt like 10 years of silence. I'm sitting there, I'm sweating, and I'm waiting, and I know I can't say anything else. I just asked this jaw-dropping question. Is there any reason why I wouldn't be considered the best for this job? Everybody's staring at me. It felt like 10 minutes, but it was really like 20 seconds. And one of the ladies at the table in this panel discussion, who had kind of been hating on me the whole time, she says out of her mouth, out loud, well, that's bold. And like, it's a face of disgust. And I'm like, dang it, Tony, I thought you said this question works. Here I am about to ruin my chances trying to do what you told me to do. And when she said it, nobody really responded. I'm still sitting there in silence. I look over to the hiring manager. She's looking at me like this. It's the weirdest look. It's just like this curiosity. Like, I don't know if she's thinking, this guy has some nerves. Or I don't know if she's thinking, I've never been asked that question. Let me think. I don't know what she's thinking. She's just silent. I'm silent. Everybody's silent. The only thing you can hear is the sweat rolling down my back. At least I can hear it. Finally, she comes to and she says, you know what? I can't think of a reason why you shouldn't be considered the best person for the role. I'm talking about relief. You would think an elephant was sitting on my chest and got up. Like it was like a moment of like, oh, okay, all right, we're back in the game. And so the next thing I said was, I said, okay, well, when do I start? And I mean, I'm in that mode, right? She just told me this. I'm like, hey, there's no point in talking about nothing else. Let's go. Needless to say, I got the role. It changed my life. I'm still friends with the hiring manager to this day. I hope she sees this. And I'm blessed for it, right? But my point to you is I made myself distinct. They remembered me. I made them feel something. Well, at least her. I made the other lady feel something too, but that doesn't matter. How are you making your potential employer feel? How are you making your current boss feel? How are you making your customers feel? How are you making yourself feel? How about that? You will distinctly remember how people make you feel. And it's the same way on the opposite end. They will distinctly remember how you make them feel. So, in the process of not competing with other people, because that is not the new wave, the new wave is to not compete, right? Not compete. Not compete. Don't compete with other people. The best way to do that is to make yourself so distinct that you make your customers feel a certain way about you, that they remember in a good light. And they'll tell other people about it and they'll come back as well. And that will continue to build upon that and compound over time. Don't feel like you got to do it all in one day. And everything is not going to work out perfectly, and that's okay. So my point to you is this. I told you as it relates to the beginning of this call, the title is The New Way to Compete is Not to Compete. Point number one was to depend on your skill, not on your timeline. Your timeline is going to tell you a story that's not the full picture. Number two was to discover what makes you unique. There's something unique about you. You need to discover it, hone it, make it your own. Number three, dive into your own lane. Don't try to do what somebody else is doing. If they reached success and got gold at the end of the rainbow, that doesn't mean you will. You could follow what they tell you to the T. It may not line up that way. Dive into your own lane. Number four, develop your distinction. What's going to make you distinct? How are you going to stand out? How are you going to be remembered? It's based off of how you make the people in your life feel. All right. So if this conversation helped you in any way to think differently, that's the work I do weekly inside the House of Brand community. It's a space for professional people, whether they are in business or corporate, who want clarity, growth, who want to feel like they belong, who want real momentum, not just haphazardness, not just figuring it out on your own. Sure, you can figure it out on your own, but it's always going to be better together. So if you're ready to stop figuring it out alone and start building with intention, I'd love to have you. The community would love you to have you. Visit community.rodbrinson.com. Just put a community in front of this domain here, and you'll be able to access the community, We're actually going to do a call next week titled Build a Brand That Pays You on January 15th. But we do a call every month. And we're not just doing calls, we're also building each other up, sharing thoughts, and, supporting one another, right? Learning different pieces as it relates to the algorithms, AI, SEO, websites, you name it. The whole idea is that you build yourself up around people who are going to support you on that walk, hold you accountable, and help you to get where you're going. So again, it's community.rodbrinson.com. We would love to have you in there. The whole point of today's discussion was to give you some pointers on how you can begin to compete in your own lane and stop trying to compete with people that are around you, inspiring you, and instead join the ranks and grow your business and your brand in a way that pays you. Again, my name is Rod Brinson. I appreciate you stopping through. You can find me all across the web. This live is LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere. My goal is to help you to grow. So I look forward to doing that. And I believe in empowering others. And I believe in that power. So have a good night. We will talk to you guys next Thursday. I'm going to go live as well right before this call that I'm doing within the community. So I will see you at 6 p.m. on Thursday and hopefully inside of the community. Talk to you later.